3, 2, 1. You're on.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Vince Carr, and I am Counselor for Education for the American Guild of Organists. I'd like to welcome you to this webinar, which is the third in a series of 6 webinars around the topic of organ teaching. I am indebted to my predecessor, Don Cook, for all of his work in assembling the presenters and the topics over these last several months. How nice it is to be able to come together and connect in this way, even though we feel far apart. These webinars represent part of the programming for this year's Committee on Continuing Professional Education, which is led by its director, Frank Crozio. The committee works to provide valuable educational opportunities for our members, and we felt that there was a tremendous need for online programming this year, most especially. We continue today with a presentation on improvisation for beginning organists by Ann Laver. Our presentation will last around 40 minutes and will be followed by a question and answer session. You may submit your question by accessing the Q&A box, not the chat, but the Q&A box, which is at the bottom of your Zoom screen to the right of the center share screen button. We will try our best to answer all the questions, and those questions we cannot answer due to the time constraints of our live webinar will be answered following the presentation. There will be some repertoire and some scores that will be referenced, and those are in a PDF that will be shared in a link via the chat. So go ahead and find that link about 15 minutes in when you'll need to reference that printed material. Without further ado, I now turn the screen over to Ann Laver.
Thanks so much, Vincent. It's great to be here. And I want to thank the whole committee for putting on these wonderful virtual events. We are just desiring connection with our fellow members. So it's great to be with you today, and I look forward to interacting with you through the Q&A. You're welcome to put your questions in at any time. There will be some moments that I can take a break in the presentation and address questions to anything that is just that I've just said. So don't feel like you have to wait till the end. Okay, so I'm here in the lovely Setner Auditorium. This is the main rehearsal and performance space in the Setner School of Music at Syracuse University. And you can see the organ above me a little bit. This is a 1950s organ built by Walter Holtkamp Sr., and it's the main instrument that we use in the music school. I do want to thank the students that are helping me today. One of them is Augustin Sobang. He's a second-year master's student in the program here at Syracuse, and he comes from Ghana, West Africa. He's been here for about a year and a half, and he's going to help manage the Q&A. So just throw those questions in there and he'll flag me down. And also, if you have questions about the pedagogy sequence I'm discussing today, the improvisation course, you can direct them to Augustin because he took this class and he might have some things to share as well. And I also want to acknowledge sound recording technology major Benji Whitman, who has helped with the audio setup today. It's really great to have his help. So you will see the handout that I've prepared for this presentation in the chat, and hopefully it's not too much to navigate between that and Zoom, but that will be I'll be playing some of those examples shortly. And I am wearing my mask. I hope you can hear me all right. We have pretty strict protocols here at Syracuse, but we've been able to be teaching in person for 9 weeks straight. So we're just gonna keep on wearing the masks. All right, so today's topic is improvisation pedagogy for beginning organists. And I will be sharing some of the resources and strategies I use in my own teaching here at Syracuse, with the hope that these may be useful to those of you who teach. So I recognize that there are going to be a couple different audiences for this webinar, perhaps those that are more interested in the teaching side of things and those that are more interested in the doing side of things. So hopefully there will be some content for both of those groups today. And I will be able to talk a little bit about next steps in the Q&A section if you're interested in further study. You'll notice that the last page and a half of the handout I've provided is a whole list of improvisation resources in English that are for purchase. You can find those at your local music library, or many of them are actually through Wayne Leupold Editions. They've done a great job of publishing a lot of improvisation resources lately. At this point, I am going to share my screen so that I can pull up a PowerPoint for a couple things. Before I get going, I thought I'd just show you this picture of what the space used to be like here in Syracuse. You saw a little bit of the Holt camp, but it used to be a Roosevelt organ before. And I mention that just because there's a lot of wonderful registration possibilities on this organ. All right. So the first point is that improvisation is within your grasp. And before I get going in this topic, I want to say that I want to acknowledge my very first improvisation teacher, who is William Porter. I learned improvisation from him at the Eastman School of Music when I came there as a first-year master's student. And at that point, in my early 20s, I've been playing the keyboard since I was 8, but I really had not had any experience with improvisation. It was all on the page. So I am a testament to the fact that it is possible to learn how to improvise, even if you haven't been doing it all your life. So I learned a lot of things from that experience, and actually a lot of what I'm going to talk about today is related back to that experience taking Professor Porter's improvisation class. The first thing is, it's never too late to try. So don't be worried by the fact that maybe you didn't grow up improvising, maybe you were always used to playing what's on the page. There's always something to learn. Second, anybody can improvise, especially when you have a clear set of guidelines and parameters. And I'm going to talk about how to set those up so you do have success today. And finally, improvisation takes regular practice, just like repertoire. If you want to get good, you have to put in the time. There's no way around it. Jerry Hancock, famous organist and esteemed improviser, said, "There's no mystique or magic to improvising, just consistent and conscientious practice." So I figured that's a nice way to open today. And these are the things that I learned when I first came to beginning improvisation. So the courses at Eastman and then my own teaching experience trying to set up a class like this here at Syracuse helped me articulate why it's so important to teach improvisation, or for those of you that are here because you want to learn how to improvise, why it's important to invest the time in this subject. Well, first of all, learning how to improvise can help you make interpretive choices with repertoire, can help you become a better player. This is because improvisation requires that you pick apart a composition to see how it's put together. So you start to understand a composer's craft. And having this awareness can help you make interpretive choices. It can also help you memorize pieces if that's something that you need to do. Second, I think this is probably preaching to the choir, but improvisation in the context of worship really engages your congregation. If your listeners know that you're making something, especially for that moment, especially for them, they have a tendency to perk up and listen and ask you questions about it afterwards. So improvisation in that context is a very meaningful thing and definitely worth the time and effort. These days, it's good to practice your focus. There's so many things that take us away from being focused, and improvisation is something that can help reinforce focusing as we perform. And finally, it helps you develop your musical ear. So these are all good things, and reinforcement of the reasons why it's important to spend the time on this, even if it's hard. Okay, so I want to talk just a minute about how you might structure a beginning improvisation course if you're somebody that's thinking about teaching. The model that was used at Eastman and the one that I still use here is a group lesson of 3 to 4 students that meets 1 hour a week. And usually what we do is we have some time to introduce an assignment and send them on their way to practice those tasks and then come back with a fully worked out piece the next time that they're going to share in class. At Syracuse, I've set things up to have separate tracks. So one is for the students coming in who are organ majors. They have experience with the instrument or they've taken lessons already. But the other track is for students who have proficiency at the keyboard, but are interested in learning the organ. And this is a way in. So we have a track for total beginners at the organ. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how to organize that so it works. Essentially, what I'm doing is using improvisation as an entry point to learning how to play the organ. I bring this up here because I could see this model working pretty well in a lot of different settings. For instance, if you've got a piano studio, why not take your piano students to the organ every once in a while and give them an improvisation lesson? You could use this in pipe organ encounters, those of you that run those, or other group lesson situations. They could be used to complement repertoire in individual lessons with organists or pianists for that matter. And those of us that teach at academic institutions, most of our music schools need accreditation. And one of the requirements in the curriculum is to have some improvisation training. So this is one way we do it here. We use improvisation and open it up to any pianist or keyboardist. Group lessons are extremely effective for teaching improvisation because students get ideas from listening to one another, and it helps build collegiality and community. So we've talked about why improvisation is important, how you might structure a class. Here's a few tips for getting started. And this goes for teachers who are looking how to structure their class, things that I've found important over the years. And also those of you that are looking to incorporate improvisation into your own practice. So first of all, it's really important to have a clear set of parameters, restrictions even. It seems kind of strange to talk about a creative art having restrictions, but really when the world is your oyster, when you have all possibilities in front of you, it's really hard to get started. So give yourself some limitations, and at that point, things will become a little bit easier. The second tip is to find some warm-up exercises or patterns that create a set of steps to the end goal. And your end goal might be a piece for the week or a hymn introduction. So figure out what style you want and then devise some set of exercises to get you there, to get the creative juices flowing. For beginners, I think it's really important to show them how to use the pedals right off the bat. Don't wait to do that in the third, fourth lesson. Do it on the first lesson. And that might be showing them how to use a pedal point, showing them how to make a pedal solo. Idiomatic use of the pedals is really the thing that's super fun about playing the organ if you're a pianist. Number 4, provide written registration suggestions that students can recreate on their own. This registration is really one of the mysteries of the organ, especially to beginning students. They don't know where to start. So you got to help them. And by providing these in your set of assignments, it can really take that element of the mystery away. And then finally, find a good model from the literature that demonstrates the technique that you want your students to be able to do. And I would add that if you do have beginning organists, then pick something that they might be able to play. Don't always pick the hardest thing, something they could see themselves doing. Okay, so that's the end of this slideshow. This is where the handout is going to be helpful to you now, because what I'd like to do with the next 20 minutes or so is show you a few of the introductory assignments so that you see where I start, and then we can talk about where to go from there. All right, just give me a second to get set up so you can see the keyboard. Okay, so you'll see on page 1 of the handout that the very first lesson is creating a pedal etude. This is definitely a good example of forcing the students to get comfortable with the pedals right away. They will notice from doing some exercises that so the easiest way to play the pedals is with alternating toes. So what I do is I give them some exercises from a method book. Doesn't really matter which one it is, but most of them start off with outlining a fifth at the pedals and working with alternating toes. And actually, it's going to be more interesting for you to watch my feet for this section. So let's see if we can get that set up. Would you be able to just put that on the... All right, tilt it down a little bit. Okay, good. So you're going to be watching my feet while I talk. First thing is to have the students play a few exercises utilizing the alternating toes. Maybe octaves. You might want to show them half steps, how you do legato with toe and heel. So it doesn't really matter what you use at the beginning, but pretty soon after you open with some printed exercises, get them making up their own. That's where we begin to start to get the improvisation going. You might also show them some famous pedal solos, like Bach's pedal exercise. And this here would be a chance to show them a registration that works pretty well for pedal playing, which is reeds in the pedal up through the mixtures. You'll see that on the handout as well. So we would play through a little bit of that, noticing that Bach uses alternating toes most of the time, that he repeats a motive, that he uses sequence. Then we might also play through a little bit of Naji Hakim's pedal etudes, just to show him that there's some crazy stuff out there for pedals. Something like that. And then you want to ask them, okay, try to make up your own exercises using some of those motives. Maybe you go back to the full organ sound and you just ask them to play within the span of an octave some alternating toes. And then repeat. So the goal of this exercise is to get the students comfortable playing the pedals. Because on the very first lesson, that's the thing that's going to seem really exciting and really daunting. And you want to be able to incorporate the pedals as you go throughout the curriculum. And this might be a good way to start. Now, for those of you that work in church settings, you're thinking, oh, geez, well, how is this helpful? Why not open one of your hymn variations or something like that with a pedal solo? So these can also be useful in different contexts. Okay, so that is, say, the first lesson. Getting going using the pedal. Then pretty quickly we move into, say, the next lesson actually is the one that I've included on the sheet. Page 2, assignment 2, harmonizing with fifths and fourths. Now, using fifths and fourths to harmonize is one of the oldest tricks in the book, and it can be extremely effective on the organ and can lead you out of your normal harmony zone, normal progressions. And that's one of the reasons why I use it. It actually forces students to think about intervals, and it doesn't actually require too much theoretical or harmonic background if that's one of the issues. So the thing we do is we start by harmonizing a C major scale in perfect parallel fifths or fourths with both hands. So first starting with fourths. Oh, thanks, Augustine. All right. Now these exercises that I've used on page 3 of the handout actually come from a fantastic improvisation manual by Jeffrey Brilhart called Breaking Free. It's the first in a 2-volume set. So one thing he asked for is just using the planing idea. You might try with fifths. The trick is to keep them perfect. So right here, always at the half step, you want to be able to avoid the tritone. So you raise that F sharp to make it work. And then you can find interesting ways to combine those things. So for example, 1A, you have fifths descending in the left hand and alternating fifths in thirds in the right. I'll play that now. So you can use the ones given here from Jeff Brilhart's book. Many improvisation books will include a chapter on parallel intervals because they're a great way to provide the restriction you need to get going and a little bit of focus. Once you try these out, then make up your own. Use contrary motion or have different key areas in each hand. So you can make up your own exercises based on this principle. And then you can even try stacking the fourths in one hand. Which, when you arpeggiate them, gives you a nice little ostinato pattern. We'll come back to that in a moment when we talk about ostinato. So these are the building blocks. And I find it really helpful, at least when I'm teaching improvisation and also in my own practice, that it's helpful to get things going with some of these exercises because they help you find harmonies that you like. And you say, oh, I remember that one. I'm going to play the ascending fifths a third apart. That sounds really cool. And I'm going to come back and use it later, maybe in a piece. So it gets the creative juices flowing. And it also keeps you focused when you practice, because if you have to make your own exercises, you're really thinking. Okay, so then what do you do? Putting a piece together. Well, here's one suggestion. If you get comfortable playing fourths in your left hand, you can provide a little bit of harmonic wash, something like this. And you can use that as the backdrop for a piece where you're trying to maybe this is a chorale prelude or an introduction to a hymn or a prelude to the start of the service. So we often will use familiar hymns as melodies. They're really great because they're mostly stepwise and they're familiar to many. So I've included Old Hundredth as one of the hymns we could try. So after the left hand, you can practice harmonizing the tune with only perfect fourths. And the place you have to watch out is, of course, the leading tone. You can pick any melody and practice this exercise. You can also try playing with fifths, the same thing. Or you can flip it around and put the fourth on top. So any of these are going to give you a non-Western sound or a non-conventional harmonic sound, and it might make your congregation perk up and listen. So then you've got all the building blocks. You've got to try to see how you can put them together. So one possibility is to get your fourths going in the left hand. That stuff. You can add a pedal point. You can move it around. And then once you get that going a little bit, you can bring in the right hand with the tune that you've practiced harmonizing in fourths. Here's a go at it. So one way of doing a chorale prelude, and it's important to map out the structure for your students or for yourself to know the different components of a piece you're trying to put together. So for example, the chorale prelude, one structure that works really well is to have introductory material, or in this case, kind of an ostinato. With my right hand, I added some fourths, just playing around in different places, mostly a pedal point on G, but I did move it from place to place, but kept the left hand relatively static. So that's the way it starts. And then eventually you bring in phrase one of the tune. After you complete phrase one, you can go back to your ostinato. You can change the harmonic place where that is. That's a chance to move things around and explore other key areas and things like that, or add another voice, as I did in my right hand. And then when you're ready, bring in phrase two, and so on. So it's sort of like introduction, phrase one, interlude, phrase two, interlude, phrase three, and so on. Classic chorale prelude structure that you'll also find in the example piece on page 4. This is an excerpt from a short prelude on Old Hundredth by Wilbur Held. This comes from the first organ book published by Wayne Leupold Editions. And I picked this because it follows that map that I just outlined. There's not an ostinato. Instead, there's some, it's sort of like a ritornello material, this figure on the trumpet sound. Oops, that's not right. So that provides the introductory material, and then the tune comes back one phrase at a time in alternation with that. And you notice that he uses fifths as pedal markers. He uses fourths and fifths in the way he harmonizes his ritornello as well. So this works pretty well for short chorale preludes and things of that nature. And the fourths can really get you out of your comfort zone in terms of the harmonies you're used to. All right, we're going to go next to an ostinato figuration as another possible technique that you could incorporate with beginning students. And I touched on a few things already that have to do with this, but here are some, if you want to have a toccata-like texture, something brilliant, these are great for hymn introductions. If you're in a church setting, you've got a great hymn that everybody knows at the end of the service, and you want to introduce it with some flair. But you can also expand it to be a standalone toccata piece. So the way to get going is to just start off by practicing some different patterns, ostinato patterns. And what I mean by ostinato is repeating. They just, you're gonna establish a pattern and then keep it going. Something like that in the right hand, perhaps. Let's get this going. There we go. And I've given a few examples of some different ostinato patterns in the model. So for instance, you could have the one from Dennis Janser with a two hand. Or a famous one from Louis Vierne. Or, another tried and true ostinato pattern is something that can fit in one hand. So a way to get going with this is just start practicing some different patterns, and you can pull them directly from the literature. You don't have to create them all yourself. And then the next step is to try to introduce a melody that you want to lay on top of that. Here's an example of how that might work. All right, so you probably figured out my melody is Angels We Have Heard on High, harmonized with thirds. Now, here's something you can do to keep your toccata going. After you've introduced a little phrase of your melody, you can answer it with a comment in the pedal. So you can use that as a sort of toccata in miniature. Get one phrase of your toccata going and then try to answer it in the pedal. And it's not so important that you answer it with the same pitches, but you might want to try answering it with the same rhythm, because then your listeners will understand that it is a commentary. Now, you could also experiment with using this principle with a canon. And instead of answering in the pedal as a comment, you can actually replay, imitate the melody you've just shown. So I'm going to close now just with a little hint of a piece that uses that idea. This comes from an improvisation that I created some time ago, but I use it in my class. I transcribed it and use it in my class because it illustrates how to use the ostinato principle and canon at the same time. The tune is Nun kommt der Heiden Heiland. And basically when the tune comes in, I focus on the tune and making sure the canon goes right. But in the interlude sections, that's a place to add or subtract accidentals and move to different key areas and try some different textures. So I'll play a little bit of that. So at this point, that wraps up 3 different assignments that you could give yourself or your students, depending on whether you're the one improvising or you're trying to teach it to others. And the handout provides some resources for further study as well. So at this point, if anybody has questions, it would be a chance to put them in the Q&A. And if you're looking for me to touch on something that you didn't get yet, this would be a place to do that as well. There was one question prior to the start of the webinar about how to change keys or introduce different key areas or connect 2 pieces with an interlude. So you can, a number of these resources provide really good maps for progressions from one key to the key area to the next that you could use. But I'll give you a really easy example, particularly that's useful with an ostinato pattern. And the piece I just played actually illustrates it pretty well. So I heard really wonderful improviser, Sophie Véronique Cochefor-Chopin, the French improviser, say, well, one way to get from key number 1 to key number 2, or mode number 1 to mode number 2, is just slowly introduce or take away accidentals. And if you've got an ostinato, one way to do that is just to start adding. So if my figure is this, I'm staying within the key. It's kind of a G, F, G, D. The next step up is just to introduce some chromaticism. So go up to A flat. Or you can introduce the sharp side of things by taking away. So by adding an accidental with a figurative type of piece, you can get from point A to point B with motion. And that's one of the things that is really helpful to think about when you're improvising. You want to find ways to keep the motion going, keep some kind of activity, even if you're not changing the harmony so often. And one way to do that is by having an oscillating pattern or an ostinato. And the main thing that you have to work on is trying to keep that going, even if you land a place you don't like. Some of the things that ended up happening just here were not my favorite outcomes, but you can't stop in the middle of it. Otherwise, everybody knows that you're not happy with what you've done. So keeping the rhythmic groove going while you get a moment to think is really one of the things that you practice by doing regular improvisation. Okay, any other questions for today? I see that people are wanting the handout, and we'll find a way to get that to you if you weren't able to download it from the chat or have a look from the chat. We will get that to you via email after the fact. And you know, the other thing is that any of that is free to borrow and use as you wish. I think one of the things about improvisation is we steal good ideas from other people all the time and make them our own and adapt them to our own situations. So it's totally fine to, if you saw something you like to try here, just use it and make it yours. And the same thing goes for the improvisation resources that I listed on the last page. Any of those, the point of those is to help you with some tools. So I would say of all of them, the one by Donald Rotterman looks really good off the page. That was a resource that had a lot of really good ideas for getting going and some really clear examples of patterns you could try. If you're really ready to jump in, Jeffrey Brilhart's books are fabulous, and they explore some extended forms like symphonic forms, song form, Messiaen's modes of limited transposition, which is another great parameter to kind of limit the musical material that, that you're able to use. So feel free to check any of those out. I would also say that if you're just getting started, I would stick with the modern idiom, the modern styles that we have. Historical improvisation is really fun, and there are a lot of good resources out there. But if you want to just jump in, some of these techniques where you are using an interval set and just using it in parallel motion. It doesn't have to be fourths, it can be thirds, it could be sixths. You'll find interesting harmonies out of there. Or some of these ostinato patterns using the octatonic collection, the scale that alternates half steps and whole steps is a good one. Other things that we do in our improvisation curriculum are, let's see, what else we do? We do chorale preludes, we do ritornellos, we explore canon a little bit, and then Bicinium, yeah, that's sort of like Bicinium is just a fancy way of saying a two-part piece. So that's the one lesson that really deals more with counterpoint and requires some knowledge of counterpoint. All right, so do we have a question in here? What is it? Ah, yeah, okay, that's a really good question. Well, it can be done, and actually it sort of depends on what the goals for each student are. So, you know, right now Augustine's preparing his master's recital and we need every minute to get to that repertoire. So in that case, it was a separate curriculum for him. But I have another student who's a music education major, and she just really wants to get better at church music and context in worship. So we work on hymns and we work on hymn introductions. And just the other day we were trying to find some ways to create a hymn introduction that was going to use some of these techniques. So it sort of depends on the student and what they need out of the lessons. That's a good question. I think there's a way to incorporate improvisation for sure within regular repertoire lessons. Any other questions at this point? All right, where is that one? Somebody is, Sandra, you said? Okay. Oh, I'm in the wrong place. I'm in the chat. The wrong place that we all told you not to go to. Okay, Sandra, yes. Need to create an improvisation as an intro to an alleluia in the Catholic Church as the priest is incensing. Okay, good. So maybe, I mean, you could try what we just did today. Could you pick you can play whatever your alleluia is. Using fourths. Just try making a piece only on fourths. And I guarantee it'll make your congregation listen. And also they'll recognize the melody. So you could just play with some fourths like that, and then try some of you could try the ostinato pattern underneath if you wanted to. But using the melodies that the congregation is going to hear in your own improvisations, especially if they're just little pieces of linking material, lets the congregation know what's about to happen. It's a nice chance to foreshadow what's happening. Okay, I would be happy to share the slides from the PowerPoint. No problem. This also is being recorded and will be posted online. So however we were getting the handout to people in email after the fact, we can do the same thing with the PowerPoint. That's no problem at all. All right. Any other questions for the good of the group? Okay, it's been fun being here with you today. I think maybe Tom Mueller had something he wanted to say as a wrap up, but it's really great to share some of this stuff. I am by no means a master at improvisation, but I steal stuff from other people when I can and try to inspire students to explore more in this area. So thanks for joining us today, and tune in for the next one.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Tom Mueller, and I'm a member of the Committee on Continuing Professional Education. I want to once again thank our colleague, Dr. Laver, for her wonderful and insightful presentation today. I certainly took away many ideas from this, as I'm sure many of us did. There's 3 more upcoming webinars in the series, and I hope that you'll be able to participate and join us for these as your schedules and interests allow. The next presentation will be next Monday at the same time, October 26th, and it will be presented by Dr. Don Cook from Brigham Young University. He'll be discussing strategies for teaching group organ. So I hope you'll be able to join us then. Again, thank you for your time today, and see you soon.